I am Vinnie Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. Just like the guy on the other mic. Yeah, he came back for a Wednesday show. I'm talking about one Mr. Chris Shaffer. Yeah. Yeah, we have Chris. Chris is in the house today with questions about health and fitness. Chris, how you doing?
Pretty good, man. So I guess my first question is, does that make me Emerson, Lake, or Palmer?
Well, that's the trilogy. That's all three of them.
Right. So out of that group, I guess, because you said it's stuck in your head. Was it stuck in your head because you and I were getting on, or was it just stuck in your head because that happens to you from time to time?
We were talking about things, and I was thinking about some of the stuff I want to talk about in the show. And everything always kind of, for me, goes back to the beginning. And as you know, everything reminds me of a song from the beginning. So, boom, ELM, as we called them when I was a kid. Yeah. Those guys, your generation, you're too young to know about ELM, but they were like the thing for a while. Like if you were a nerdy kid like me and listened to albums in your bedroom because you didn't have a lot of friends, and then went straight to the gym and worked out with Joe Bonadonna, that's kind of what I was into. I was also into ELO. You remember those guys?
The Electric Light Orchestra?
Yeah, but that was basically one guy that did the whole thing. I mean, when he went on tour, he had to get a band together because Jeff Lynne basically played all the instruments in the studio. And, he's one of those musical geniuses, as they call him. And anyway,
Vinnie, you said I'm probably too young to know that, but you know that secretly you call yourself Gran Torino, but secretly I am actually Gran Torino.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, you're probably.
Oh, wait, Chris, hang on. I don't call myself Gran Torino. I think I'm young and cool. The internet calls me Gran Torino.
So we're exactly reverse, right? I just assume that I'm a 70-year-old guy yelling at clouds, and you think I like that.
But in my mind, I think I'm cool. Like, I actually sold my Corvette because I was becoming too much like Gran Torino. I would just go outside and with my shirt off and rub down my Corvette, which was somewhat homoerotic, I guess.
Sounds about right, yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I've literally become Gran Torino, because that's what he did. He shined up his car all day. And I don't sit on my front porch and drink beer, but yeah, it was kind of sad. So I said, I got to sell this car. I can't keep it. Right. So, Chris, as you know, every year I do several New Year's resolutions, and I try to stick to all of them. Some fall by the wayside. I mean, I'm human like everyone else, but I stick to most of them. Like this past year, one of the ones that fell off a bit for me was, I said it kind of fell off. I'm still kind of doing it. I said that on Audible, every time I get to the end of Think and Grow Rich, I'll just start it over again. And I'll just keep listening to it over and over because I think it's the greatest book that's ever been written, right? It's helped me become successful in my life in all sorts of endeavors. And I tell everyone, go get that book either on Audible or read it or something. I've been reading it since I was 12. Started reading it. Now I just listen to it on Audible. That one fell off the page a little bit because when I have other people on the show, I have to listen to their books, right? So when I'm out walking or at the gym or whatever, I'm listening to their books so that I can interview them. And I'm behind on those, right? Like I've been trying to get my buddy Oscar Chalupsky in here. He's got a great book out there. I'm only 3 hours into the book. I'm trying to get Oscar in to do a podcast about his book that's fabulous. It's been out for like a couple of months now, and he keeps writing to me, have you finished the book yet? It's like, dude, you're in line. Right? So that's one New Year's resolution that I had to, put on the back burner. I had to house it a bit because couldn't do it. But the one I never let go of is like the exercise or like if I tell myself a whole year of no life into living, that's that. I usually have something sugary on the 31st of December, usually a piece of pie or something I really like. And then there's 1 year of 0 life into living, nothing. I've done those probably 6 or 8 times. And I do it to do, basically solidarity with the people, the morbidly obese who are sugar addicted and just can't seem to fix themselves. Right. So I do that. Every year for the past 8 or 9 years, I've been telling, I do at least 365 hours of aerobics. And the reason I do that is because I'm not training for anything anymore other than some mountain climbs, which I can do in my sleep most of the time. I'm not doing any ultra cycling races where I have to really put the hours in. So in order to make sure I keep up with my aerobics, I've been saying, okay, at least an hour a day. And every year, Chris, I've gotten to 400 and some years 420, 450, right? This year, it looks like I've had a slow year this year and that's what we're going to talk about today. As of right now, today, we're recording this on the 30th of October. I'm at 334 hours exactly. And so I'm going to probably land around 415, 420 for the year, right? We have 61 days left in the year. The reason I'm telling you that is because I wanted to tell you this. Next year, I may cut down that aerobic amount to some degree. And I haven't formulated in my head how I'm going to do this yet. But I'm going to put more muscle on next year. And here's why. I'm 62 now, and I've been keeping sarcopenia at bay. My deal is I try to keep my body looking the same year in and year out, and I've had no problem doing that, doing weightlifting several times a week. But I want to put my theory to test. Now, I don't know if you know this. The audience might know this, most don't. I have very low testosterone, low T. It hovers every time I get it checked. Go on, look up
free or total?
Well, I don't know what the free is, but my total never goes, like we saw one time, it was like at 350. And that's like, whoa, look at me. Most times I get it checked, it's been 2 to 250. And this has been going on ever since the first time I had chemo 17 years ago. I've always asked my doctor, and this is not me being braggadocious. I said, Doc, look, I don't have, I went to what do you call, an internist. I've been to, what do you call the guys, urologist. I've been to all of these different people, right? Endocrinologist. And they all say the same thing. I hardly ever have morning erections. That's one of the things they talk about. I'm not saying this is a joke. I never really have those and haven't had them for years. My question to the endocrinologists with S, that I've been to several, and the urologists, because I've been to more than one, and my internist is like, I never have trouble having intercourse. So it's never a sexual function. I never have erectile dysfunction in any way, shape, or form, other than they're all interested in this morning erection. I don't know why. It has something to do with how they tell. So I don't know. I do not have trouble when I want to strength train. If I'm on a regimen to actually gain a lot of strength, I don't seem to have problems. Caveat. I cannot do it the way I used to do it when I was younger. The rest is more important than it's ever was. I need to have longer rest in between hard pushes in the gym, right? So back in the day where I can go push, pull legs, push, pull, legs, and then just go right back in. Now I'll do push, pull, legs, take a day off, push, pull, take another day off, legs. See, I'm spreading them out further and further, and I'm not going as hard as I could go. Now, lately I've had an excuse. I went through chemo again, and my blood is finally coming. And you may remember those videos we did not many months ago where I couldn't get, 3, 4, how many push-ups was I able to do, Chris? You saw the video.
A handful, like 3 or 4.
Yeah, I wasn't kidding. If I got in my slings behind me and tried to do abs, my abs still looked like, oh my God, this guy can do abs all day, right? I got to 10, just bringing my knees to my chest, and I had to get out of the thing. I got dizzy, I got lightheaded, I had to lay on the floor for a while. Chemo is, excuse my language, a motherfucker. It just is. Cancer is no fun, right? But coming out of that, my workouts have been like a Rocky 1, montage, where, I'm dancing around like, the first day I'm throwing up, I'm doing this and that, I'm trying to do 5 push-ups. And my strength is starting to come back, right? And I'm about to get to where I was before in strength. But it's been a concerted effort. And I'm thinking, really, can I put myself to task? I'm not going to go on hormone replacement therapy. I don't need it. I've always said, and I know this because this is something I studied in college, you can build muscle at 85 the same way you built muscle at 15. The problem is testosterone, your telomeres, just everything in your body is rusting as you get older. That's part of what causes sarcopenia. And then as your body rusts, we slow down, we do less, and that it becomes a piling on effect. And now you start having bone loss and everything else. And my hero, the great Jack LaLanne, was looking great in the 70s and still pulling 75 rowboats behind him and swimming a mile. But he became diminished after that. Like my friend Dr. Drew said to me, at some point you fall off a shelf. Well, I want to see how long I can go before I fall off that shelf. And you out there in the audience, you might want to do this too. You want to see how long you could go before you fall off of that shelf, right? So I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to obviously have to cut back on aerobics. Now, when me and my climbing buddy, the billionaire, Don Coddington.
It's the billionaire, Don Coddington's Friday, 5 o'clock.
At some point, I'm going to be getting the phone call to go to, climb something next summer. I'm going to do what I used to do. I'm going to cut back on the weights for, 5-6 weeks ahead of time, put more time in the mountains, right? Throw some weights on my back, go in the mountains. The kids love to call it rucking nowadays. By the way, remind me.
Walking with weights. Yeah.
Walking with weights. I actually finally got one of those Go rucksacks.
Is it the vest or the backpack?
No, put a pin in that. We'll talk about that after I finish talking about this. Don't let me forget. So I'm trying to figure out right now, because I've actually already started creeping up my weights, because I got very interested in this when I got so weak during cancer. So even though it's my New Year's resolution, folks, notice what I'm doing. I'm not really waiting until New Year's, until January 1st. Everybody starts on January. I'm meandering. What's the word? As my favorite author, Napoleon Hill, would say, I'm doing a transmutation. I'm conceiving, right? I'm perceiving. I have the perception of what I want to do, what I want to look like, how I want to feel as a 62-year-old man. So the perception is there. The conception is there. Now I just need to achieve it. And I'm not going to go, oh, okay, I'm just going to, drink and live and do everything until January. No, because right now, today, 31, we're talking the 30th. That means we have 61 days left in this year. I always know where I am with days, right? This show is coming out on the 13th, 61. So that gives about 48 days left in the year. By the time you hear this, I'm not waiting until January 1st. I'm already mutating into that. I'm already moving into that. I'm telling you guys this. This is not about me telling you guys what I do. I'm telling you what I do because it might be what you want to do, right? So you guys hear what I'm going to do. And, for you, it might be something else. Maybe you want to start running. Maybe you want to start rowing. Maybe you want to start riding a bike, climbing a mountain. I don't know what it is. But you can start moving in that direction before the actual date. And that's very important, right? You might go, oh, I don't have the time and this and that. Well, what? You're going to magically have the time on January 1st? On this day in the future that, this is a man-made holiday. We created time. That's a construct of humans. You ask any of my dogs, you ask my cats what time it is, they have no idea. They'll tell you it's time to eat. That's about it. Right? They'll start staring at you and say, why is he oh, it's their time to eat. But they don't know that it's a time on the clock. They just know it's a time in the day. Right? So January 1st, any kind of marking of a calendar or a watch or a clock is a construct by humans. We put that in place. Don't just be dictated by that. Be dictated by, this is how I want to live my life, and I'm making this resolution. Why wait until January 1st? I'm starting it now so that when I get to January 1st, I'm already at full speed. I don't have to ramp up. Does that make sense, Chris?
It does. And you said everything reminds you of a song, Vinny, and you just said time is a construct, right? So immediately Chicago pops into my head. Does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? And I think one of the things that we do as human beings is set that artificial deadline. I think January 1st is a good example of that. But anytime we're trying to improve our health, our life, create a new habit, we go, I'll do that Monday, or I'll start that on Sunday. And the real reason we're doing that is because we're trying to avoid doing the hard thing, right? I'll start this the first of the year, and I'm going to create a New Year's resolution. I think one thing people need to start to realize is anytime you have that resistance to change, or you see yourself setting a goal and saying, I'll start this when, it's a good sign you should probably start doing it now, because your body is telling you, your brain is telling you, your whole system is telling you, hey, this is something that is going to be scary. It's going to be a change. And the sooner you start to realize that when you have that resistance, that it usually leads to a good thing, the easier it is to come back and say, okay, let me figure out how to start this now or today. I don't need that extra large pizza during the football game this weekend because I'm not going to eat it on Monday anyway. So let's just start this today. I think the other thing you mentioned that was interesting to me, and I'm standing over here taking notes, was testosterone and sex drive. You were talking about, what was it, 300? Somewhere around there is your standard level?
Usually I'm in the 225 to 250 range. One time I went in, and when you go in the morning, you're elevated anyway. So I took one like at 8:30 in the morning because that was when I was able to go see my doctor. And they measured me at 350, which, so sometimes it goes up a bit, right? But I'm not willing to take, and people have said to me, man, just go on, hormone replacement therapy. Some people call it, they got 2 or 3 names.
HRT.
HRT, hormone treatment. The reason I'm not against it. Other people do it. People go, why don't you do it? It's like, well, it's a fairly new thing. And once you go on it, now you're on a medication. That's one thing. I get it. People are on it. People. I remember I got in trouble because people asked me if Robert F. Kennedy was on it. Because he took his shirt off and the guy looked amazing and the whole thing. He was in the 70s. And I went on and said, yeah, he's on it. And people, why are you saying that about him? It's like, I'm saying what he said, right? I'm not saying he's a man doing this.
He's trying to.
I'm a cancer survivor and I don't know enough. And I've had enough people go, oh no, they're saying now that you may not get prostate cancer if you take it. It used to be, if you take it, you're going to get prostate cancer. So, the science is up in the air. The one thing I do know is if I take it now, I don't want to wish, oh shit, now I'm dying 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I wish I'd never done that. right? I don't need anything else to come in and mess me up any more than I'm going to be messed up. If you decide to do it, that's fine. If you think, the juice is worth the squeeze, and it might be, it probably will be. I'm probably wrong about this, right? And
Maybe.
I don't know. I just know that I watched my grandparents live to ripe old age. They ate a lot of meat. They ate a lot of vegetables. They got a lot of vitamins the natural way. I'm a vitamin taker. Yes, some vitamins help with this. Getting good nights of sleep. I started really, really a couple of years ago, really prioritizing sleep. I think that helps your body regenerate. I know it helps your body regenerate. And on some nights when I know I'm going to be up late, I'll take a 0.5 milligram of melatonin, right? Because I work late at night sometimes. And when I'm looking at these screens, I work on the screens. I'll take the 0.5. That's not even one. Now, I didn't say 5 milligrams. I said a half a milligram, just to make sure that when I get in bed, I go down fast and I stay asleep for 8 hours. I'm prioritizing things, vitamin B, B12, folate. All of this stuff has been proven to help. It's not going to jack up your testosterone, but it's all supposed to help, right? I do take, I do get a lot of creatine. Your body makes creatine. I went back on taking creatine again, just just a small dose of it. Is it making me stronger? Is it helping? I don't know. I've gone on and off of creatine over the past 30 years. The reason I'm on it right now is because of the cancer. And they talk about how creatine, they're finding more and more that is good for brain health and this and that, more than just your muscles. Chris and I have talked about, once we get Pure Vitamin Club back on the up and up, it's one of the things I'm considering. I'm not saying I'm going to bring it in, but if I do, it's going to be the best creatine in the world, which is our problem right now with the company. Getting the best products are not that easy. So not anything. I'd rather see you take nothing than take a bastardized product. But there are a bunch of things like that, right? Where, you can help your cellular health by taking certain things. Chris, you look like you want to say something.
Oh, that's just my resting question face. I think one of the things and how we got here is we were talking about testosterone and sex drive. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is, yes, technically testosterone is tied to sex drive, but having a low average level is not necessarily the reason that you don't have sex drive, because you have the opposite thing, right? Like most things in life, there's a bell curve to this. And if you have too much testosterone, ask bodybuilders, right? Eventually you will, not that all bodybuilders take superhuman amounts of testosterone, but the ones who do will tell you that you will eventually run into a point where you have no sex drive, right? Do you know who Mike Israetel is?
Yeah.
Vinnie?
Yeah.
He talks very openly about his
A lot
use.
of them do now. Back in my day, they all pretended steroids. What is this steroid you speak of? It was very quiet back in my day, but you knew who was on it and who wasn't. But yeah, a lot of them are open about it and what they're taking. They call it gear nowadays. They're all on gear.
One of the things that he said about his most recent experience with it was the two side effects for him, and the reason he took it is because he wanted to see what a superhuman dosage was like at his age now, right? He's getting older. I don't know if he's in his 40s or 50s, but he's not a young buck anymore. And he said it made his depression worse, right? Or like his angriness with the world, and killed his sex drive, which he thought was kind of interesting. But having low testosterone also doesn't mean that you don't have a sex drive. It's a very individual thing. And I think one of the things that people realize as they're getting into their 30s and 40s is, we all know that testosterone goes down. And so that's an immediate solution. But it really is more tied, at least it seems to be, to the lifestyle factors, meaning we're eating real food. We're getting enough, here's a scary word, not for this podcast, but for the rest of the internet, fat, right? We're eating cholesterol. We're giving our cells the building blocks that they need,
right,
to do the things that our body is supposed to do. And for some people, doing those things, right? Taking your vitamin D, making sure you're getting enough cholesterol, making sure you're eating enough fat, making sure you're eating real food. In a lot of cases, that will either raise your testosterone if your natural level should be higher, or it will just fix things. One of the things that I have noticed, and you mentioned sleep, which is how I'm tying this all together, is if I put a little bit of life into living, my sleep goes to crap for 3 or 4 days afterwards.
Oh.
And as soon as that has cleared out of my system, everything goes back to normal. That first night that I have great sleep, you feel great the next day. Your body works like it's supposed to, and you go from there. And I'm not opposed to HRT, and I don't think you are either.
Oh, no, no, I'm not.
The question becomes, when is it the right thing? And should you be taking straight up testosterone? And I think one of the beautiful things about telemedicine and telehealth is you can get anything prescribed now, right? If you have ED, you can jump on one of 100 different websites, right? All of the different podcasts have Blue Chew or Roman or any of these different places as sponsors now. And there's 100 places you can do that just by getting online. Whether that is the reason, right? Whether you actually need the assistance or if it's a lifestyle thing, that's not ever addressed. And I think the downside to HRT in my mind is that it has become a panacea. It's become a cure-all for any of these things where you're like, hey, I'm getting older. I'm 35. I'm 40. I don't know what my levels were in my 20s and 30s, but I'm at 300 now. Let me get on a telehealth call and just get them to prescribe me TRT or HRT, right?
Right.
And what they're doing with that is giving you straight testosterone in most cases. Now, there's some interesting stuff going on. Are you familiar with the drug Clomid?
I'm only familiar with it because I've seen people talk about it. I don't know anything about it. So go ahead and bring it up.
So for people who are typically taking those like hero doses of testosterone, Clomid was one of the drugs that they would take when they were getting off the cycle. And what they noticed was that there's actually some testosterone boosting benefits without the conversion to DHT.
Right.
But because it's designed to balance your hormones, it was also increasing estrogen, which would then lead bodybuilders to weep at chick flicks, right? Or to watch your Hallmark holiday movies and just be crying for no reason because they were also increasing their estrogen. One of the interesting things that's coming around right now in the HRT, TRT world is they're looking at one of the derivatives that came out of Clomid. I think it's enclomiphene. And that doesn't have a lot of the downstream effects because it's more of a precursor to creating more testosterone. And if you get off of it, you're not stuck on it forever. You just go back to whatever the levels were versus injecting once a week or getting the under the skin pellets or any of those kinds of things, which is a very unnatural process. So they're essentially encouraging your body to make more if that's where your level should be. That to me makes a heck of a lot more sense than putting a giant needle and spiking your level from 300 to 1200 for 2 days and feeling like a Greek god Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, feeling like garbage before you re-inject a giant dosage of testosterone on Sunday and go break the whole world. I don't think people have a good understanding of what their hormone levels are. And I think the earlier you can start to understand what that is, the better off you're going to be long-term. Because you can say, hey, when I was 35, this is what my testosterone was.
Right.
That means my body can get back there. The question is then how, or should I, as opposed to, well, they told me I'm hypergonadal or they told me I have low T. The only thing I can do about that right now is get a telemedicine appointment and have them prescribe me giant pellets or a cream or something like that I can use. And I think the wickedness in this is that you feel great, right? So you get that big boost in testosterone, you feel amazing, but we don't necessarily think about the long-term side effects of that. And I think the biggest thing that people need to understand if they're thinking about TRT is you are on that forever, right? Or you go back to feeling like you felt before. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but there's a season for everything.
Well, look, I just couldn't imagine being on a drug for the rest of my life. You know, here I am at my age and I still haven't had, I'm still, you know, whenever I go in there, I go, how many drugs are you on when you go to the hospital? Well, I'm zero, nothing, zero. And, you know, I'm proud of that, right? When the average American is on somewhere between 5 and 8 medications. So there's something to be said for that. The other thing, I think there's 2 reasons that I became scared of steroids early on. This is long before, we're talking the late 1970s and 80s. My beloved strength coach, Joe Bonadonna, was on steroids. And he would tell me all the time, don't ever start doing this. He goes, I can't get off. I can't stop. Every time I try to stop, and I'll start to lose strength and this and that. And this was a man who wasn't doing anything but keeping his bench press at 400 and squatting whatever, and loved the man to death. I have a picture of the two of us right over in the other room. I look at him every day. He did not see his 60th birthday, right? He died. Now, I watched football players that I would watch them leave at the end of the school year at Tulane. They would go home and then put on 20, 30 pounds of muscles in 2.5 months. And they would come back looking like a different human being, and their voice would drop, and they had a lot of pimples on their back. And that was scary to me because, their balls would shrivel up, right? And I'm looking at that going, wow, nothing about this looks right? Your balls look like raisins, are you good? We're good, right? And some of the guys would talk about, and they had to stay on them, and it made them aggressive. Back then, everyone was taking Winstrol and Dianabol. Dianabol was like when you just popped in your mouth, right? They made no bones about it. When I was playing college football, everybody was on this shit. Dianabol and Winstrol was the one you had to shoot in, and Dianabol. And I looked around and went, I'm never doing this. I'm never doing this, because these guys, some of them would get aggressive and beat up people. End up in jail. The school would have to go bail them out, right? When you see one football player on the field, you're watching on Sunday football, you go, wait, that man balled up a fist and punched another man in the helmet. That makes absolutely no sense. How stupid is this guy? And now he's getting kicked out of the game. That's a rage. You're looking at it on Sunday. These guys are all taking this shit. You're going, oh no, they're just mans and the whole thing. No, these guys rage out there on the field. You will watch a man hit another man in a helmet and hit his head and you'll break your hand if you do that. Doesn't stop them. They do it, right? They get rageful. And I used to watch this in college, and I watch these guys talk about, oh, now I got to go smoke marijuana just so I can fall asleep tonight. And it's like, okay, now you need another drug to combat the other drug you're on, right? And then after college, I would see these guys 2 years down the road, and I would go, Jesus Christ, what the fuck happened to you, right? Look at Arnold Schwarzenegger today versus Arnold back in the day. Doesn't look like the same guy, right? Look at Dorian Yates nowadays versus Dorian Yates when he was the world's best bodybuilder, one of the first mass monsters. Hell, go look at the King, Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah.
I can barely walk. You look at all these guys and go, wait, they if you show it before and after of the three guys I just mentioned, Schwarzenegger, Dorian Yates, and Ronnie Coleman, you'll go, holy shit, right? Now, I knew probably the last guy who won Mr. Olympia. Chris, look up and see what he won. Look up Mickey Hargitay. I don't know if Olympia was around back then. He either won that or Mr. Universe, whichever competition. He famously was married to Jane Mansfield. His daughter is the famous Mariska Hargitay you still see on television. I used to live in their guest house. He was Mr. Olympia or Universe. I don't know what was around back then. But he was probably the last one that did it clean with no juice. Just to let you know how these guys are. You can look up Steve Reeves. Go look up some of these people and see what you can actually do with your body without steroids. Was he Olympia? Did you find it, Chris?
Universe, 1955, yeah.
1955. Steroids, Dr. Goldman had started figuring out steroids when Dr. Goldman figured out the first, they were taking it from apes or from bears or from cows or something. They figured out, but these guys weren't using any of that stuff back then. Steve Reeves, all of these guys, Reg Park, All of these guys were huge without using these drugs, right? They were able to put the muscle on. And, you know, when you want to talk about the real golden era of bodybuilding and men putting on muscle without using steroids, those are the guys you want to look at. The late, great Vince Gironda, who's one of my heroes, the same way Jack LaLanne was. Vince Gironda didn't believe in steroids because he hated the look. Gironda, you go ask Schwarzenegger, who's one of the best bodybuilding trainers in the world, he'll say Vinnie Gironda. Gironda ate 35 eggs a day and worked out like a maniac, right?
Hold on, 35 eggs. I'm an egg lover.
Yeah.
I can't imagine eating 3 dozen eggs.
By the way,
in a week, much less a day.
He had as few as 12 and as many as 36 a day. So
I only had a dozen eggs today. It was not a big day for me.
But go look up Vinnie Gironda and you'll see what I'm talking about. Right? That's the kind of body you want. You want to have Mickey Hargitay's body. You want to have Reg Park's body. You want to have Steve Reeves' body. These guys had, and by the way, they were all in movies, right? Hercules and all the movies they did back then. They all preceded Schwarzenegger to the movies, right? Then Schwarzenegger's group and also who played Hulk, the Ferrigno. These guys were the first steroid head bodybuilders that we put in movies, right? Early Stallone. Look at Stallone in Rocky 1. That's non-steroid use, right? Probably didn't start using until he started working with one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time, who was also Schwarzenegger's best friend, Franco Columbu. When he got into doing double, he had 2 sequels going at the same time, the Rocky franchise and the First Blood franchise. And he had to stay in, the First Blood character was all ripped up. How do you stay ripped? Well, you take a little juice, right? You see the difference in the body between that Stallone and the earliest Stallone. Go on.
So when people are thinking about testosterone level or steroids, generally speaking, you mentioned something. You said you're going to start and you have a theory because you can still build muscle when you're 60, 70, 80, just like you could when you are 15. So why do people go to that higher level of testosterone? Because you still have the same muscle building capacity. Is it the rest and recovery side of that?
It's the rest and recovery, and no one has the time for it. Now, look, as you know, I'm trying to run. I think we figured out I have like 19 different businesses or something like that, right? Yeah. That, Serena and I are now running everything. We're trying to get the vitamins back to where they were and the whole thing. But we have 19 different holding companies of some sort. So I'm busy. Luckily, I have a wife that's in it with me. You're in it with us. We do all this stuff, right? But I still find time because I have to prioritize this. Half the time when Chris and I are having meetings, where am I, Chris?
If I miss a call from you in the morning and call you back, you are always at the gym. And it's not, hey, I'm at the gym. Can I call you back? It's, hey, I'm finishing a set right now. Can we talk in a minute?
Yeah, I'll just say, hang on, and he'll hear me go through a set and grunting and everything. And then I'll come back to him and then go into another set because I have I have to do that. This is part of my job and the way I want my life to be. I want to look and feel a certain way. And this new thing is I'm going to have to start cutting back on the aerobics a little bit. And I don't know how to quantify that in my book. I might have to go to a looser approach, right? Because I'm not going to give up aerobics at all.
Well, and so when you talk about aerobics, you're talking about intentional cardio, right? You're not talking about walking the dogs or going out for a walk and talk. Like that's the other place I almost always catch you is you're like, hey, hang on, I'm coming around a corner.
And that's the crazy thing. That does not count as my aerobics. Now, I will go out without the dogs because it'll be too hot for this, in midsummer. Or right now, I'm still doing it. The aforementioned, putting weight on my back, right? And I switched recently because, okay, the weight on my back used to be when I was training to go somewhere with, my buddy Donnie.
It's the billionaire Don Connington's friend.
Anyway, I would, throw dumbbells in a backpack. I would just, because I have every backpack known to man, I would, just fill one up with the amount of weight plus 10 pounds that I would be using on my trip, and just do that, right? And then someone gave me one of those 511 vests. So basically, it's a bulletproof vest, but you put steel weights in the front, steel weights in the back. The problem is that I have a pinched nerve in my neck that I've figured out how to fix, even though doctors told me you need to get the disc replaced. I figured out how to relatively be out of pain. The problem is with that 511 vest, the weight pulls on the front and the back at the same rate. And it, after like 20 or 30 minutes, is just a searing, crazy amount of pain that starts to run up into my neck and into my skull. So you don't want to do that. So just recently, I bought the Go Ruck system to see if that would work. Now, folks, you don't need this system. It's nice to have. It's a really nice setup. And if they ever want to advertise on this show, then I'll tell you to go get it. But I got the Rucker 4.0 with 40-something, 50 pounds of weight. And that's going to run you, by the time, they ship it and everything, is going to run you in the 400s, right? I get to write it off. This is what I do for a living. I'm very stingy with my money, but you get to, there it is. That's the one I have. How much is it, Chris?
It starts at $250, and then they're selling 10-pound plates at $75, it looks like.
Yeah, but I bought a bunch of stuff together. So, they start giving you bundle discounts on the weights and everything else.
So what's the difference between something like this and just a backpack with a dumbbell in it, or a plate, like a 45-pound plate?
Leave that photo up. So, folks, by the way, we started putting these podcasts back on Vinnie Tortorich YouTube. So you can go see what Chris has up at YouTube. You see the orange area in there? Mm-hmm. It holds the weights. They give you these big, giant, square weights, and there's 2 or 3 compartments, and you can stick the weight so they're high on your back. You could pull it high on your back, and you can actually, they'll give you a waistband. You can buy, I didn't buy it, but I'm going to get it. I'm waiting for it to be available. They're out of them, to where you could do like a backpacker and let it hang low for longer days training with it. But it keeps the weight high and tight on your back. Now, when I would do the weights with my own backpacks, the problem is I have a ton of dumbbells, and I have a ton of plate weights, right? I would take old towels and cut them, right? And I would roll them. I would roll the weights in the towels, because I didn't want all of the weight to sag to the bottom. I wanted it to be along my back. So if you roll a 10-pound plate dumbbell in a towel, and then roll another one in a towel, you can equalize it. This is already done for you, right? Do you see what I'm saying? This is an expensive way.
It just gives you more control over how it feels and where the actual weight is.
It
doesn't make a difference from a workout standpoint, but it does make a difference from a fatigue and a pinched nerve, or low back issue. Before Go
became a thing, my ghetto style worked just perfectly, and my ghetto style still works. Go Ruck has done a great job of putting a lot of extra padding, because they know that you're in the straps, and the padding along your back, because they know you're going to be carrying heavy weights, and that it's more comfortable, right? Now, the beauty of what I would do with my backpacks, like if I was going to go with tents and everything, I would put that backpack on and fill that up with weights at different levels and wear that, right? Because I wanted to feel the backpack I was going to use on my trip. And I'm going to still go to that. Like if I know I'm going to be backpacking for days on end, I'm going to go to that versus the Go Ruck, right? And I may even use the plates from the Go Ruck to put in that, because they're made for that. So is it absolutely needed? No. Is it a really cool device if you're going to use it? Yes. Yes, I like it. I'm a fan.
Well, so here I guess is the question. if you just go out for a walk, you're not counting that towards your cardio goal. But if you are going and you're taking the Go Ruck with you or doing something like that,
Yeah, I got 40, 50
that towards your
pounds.
cardio goal?
Yes. And I've done that. Like if I know I have to have a phone call with you or anything like that, right? Sometimes I have to have phone calls with other people. I will throw 50 pounds on my back or so, 60 maybe, sometimes 30, depending on how I feel. If I did legs that day, I'm not going to put 60 pounds on my back. I'm going to give my back a break. I'm going to put 30. I will count that. If I know I can't do anything else, I'm going to count that as my aerobics that day. There are a lot of times if I did the rowing machine or the bike that I might throw 30 pounds in a pack and not count that as my aerobics. So, you can make anything aerobics or not aerobics. So when I say I've done 334 hours for the year, it's way more than that, but that's what I've counted, if that makes any sense.
It does. And so I guess the question for people getting started in this, and I want to start with the cardio side of this.
Mm-hmm.
That is a goal, and it truly is an arbitrary goal that you've set for yourself, but it's something you want to keep, right? You could have made that a half an hour. You could have made it 5 hours a day. That would be insane, and no one would actually recommend that. But I guess the question is, where should people start? If somebody is doing nothing right now, should they count that just walk around the block as their cardio?
Absolutely. But look, I talk in the consults to people who are, everything from 600 pounds and can't get off the couch all the way down to ultra runners. I got off the phone with an ultra runner. We just sent free product to an ultra runner who's doing an ultra in Carlos Donez. He's been around for a long time. He's done consults with me. He couldn't get product, because he's in Mexico and he forgot to bring his ultra salt and his ultra fat.
Oh, wait, so that got smuggled across the border into Mexico. That's even better.
Right. Yeah. We smuggle stuff out of the country. Look at us. So yeah, he forgot to bring it, and his buddy was going to help him crew for the race. And we shipped all the stuff to his buddy and said, hey, Carlos needs this. I talked to everyone from a Carlos Donez all the way up to 600-pound people. Carlos is getting ready to run 100 pounds and 100 miles in a mountain. Sometimes I'm talking to these people saying, can you stand up for 5 minutes at a time? That's where they are. And if that's where your exercise is, that's where it is. Because your body was never meant to support 600 pounds. I'm bitching about carrying a 40, 50-pound pack on my back. These people have 600 pounds that they can't alleviate themselves from. Standing up is their workout right now, right? When they get down to 500 pounds, maybe they're walking a couple of steps, walking around the block. Some of them are telling me, hey, I need to have knee surgery and hip surgery, and my doctor won't do it until I lose 200 pounds, right? It's amazing. I get choked up sometimes with these people, man. I really get choked up. And if you go back to the Monday podcast I just did, I was yelling. I was pissed because I just had a close friend who, was one of these super heavy people, and it finally caught up with her, man. She, she's still with us, but she had to go in heart. Thought she had a little indigestion. She was, heart was going, she went through a heart attack. I'm hoping she's listening now. I hope she starts doing what she needs to do, right? I feel for these people. These people are in my family. I have friends. My best friend in childhood is one of these people. I worry that one day I'm going to get the phone call. He's only 62. We're the same age, right? I do not want him to die. That's where my passion is, right? That's why I do any of this. And I'm trying, when I talk, I'm not being braggadocious about doing my aerobics and wanting to get back into weightlifting, because as we learned, I've talked about this a lot. Ronald Reagan got shot in what year? 82, 81, 80. 80? When did Reagan get shot? And then part of his rehab, Chris is looking up, part of Reagan's rehab was they put him on a weightlifting routine. Did you figure it out, Chris?
March 81.
Yeah, sounds about right. Reagan gets shot in March of 81. Part of his rehab was he started training with weights. And the old Gipper started gaining muscle at the ripe old age of, how old was he in 81, Chris? Be interesting to know.
He had to have been in his 70s at that point, right?
Easily in his 70s.
He was born in 1911, so he would have been 70.
Yeah, so yeah, when he played George Gipp in that movie, he was probably in his 30s playing a college kid. So he was a good looking, very healthy looking guy. All right, so 70, and the guy started working out and put on muscle, right? Because your muscles will generate exactly the way they generate when you're a kid. The only difference is the rest of your body is rusting. But if you can reverse that, you can become healthier. That was a long way around today, Chris. We probably won't have time to get to any of the questions you have, but we could do that next week.
So the question that keeps coming back up is, okay, so let's say somebody is in their 50s or 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they have a strength training background. Maybe they don't.
Mm-hmm.
What do you expect as you're getting back into this? And what should they expect to be the first signs of results? Because everybody assumes they're going to go to the gym and they're immediately going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? I lift 3 times a week. I must get giant out of nowhere. What are the first signs that people should expect? And what are the changes that you're expecting from making that shift from more of a cardio focus to more of a weightlifting and strength building focus?
Good question. So the first thing you're going to feel is the kids now call it DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. You're going to notice that the first couple of times you go in, you're going to feel debilitated, right? And you're going to go, oh my God, I must be doing something good because I can feel this. Something happened. But as you go in for, several more workouts, you're going to go, wait, it's not working anymore. I'm not getting sore like I did the first. You're not supposed to continue to get sore, right? And you'll notice that every now and again, when you switch up the routine a little bit, you'll feel a little tightness or soreness just by switching up, and which is something you should do quite often anyway, is just switch up the routine a bit. But that's what you want to, that's what you're going to feel. So once you get past the soreness, start looking at, put telltales in there. Give yourself an honest assessment. How much can I bench press right now 10 times? Mark it down. Bring a little book. We used to all have our little books in there, right? It might be just a bar. Go on, Chris.
I think that in my mind is one of the biggest things that people miss from a workout perspective, is seeing the paper progress, if that makes sense. Right. Even if you don't see a giant body composition change right away. Because as you've said, Vinnie, exercise is a poor way to lose weight. Strength training, you tend to get some outsized results because things are growing while other things are shrinking. But you might not see your biceps change in a few weeks. What you will see, and this goes back to like the 5x5 and the body by science, the Doug McGuff stuff that you and I have talked about in the past, is like, if you are progressively increasing weight, that is a sign you are getting stronger. And you will see that whether you're doing it on paper, you're doing it in an app, however you're recording that, that is that first sign of progress, right? It's the non-scale victory of exercise. I was able to walk 2 miles today instead of 1 mile 2 weeks ago, or I was able to bench 100 pounds today instead of 75 2 weeks ago. Something's happening, whether I recognize that in the mirror right now or not.
And, to that point, at the beginning, the changes, the weights shoot up pretty fast, right? And then people get complacent. They get a little bored with it because it can be a boring endeavor. And they'll go, man, I went from, lifting 75 pounds 10 times to doing 125 pounds 10 times pretty damn quick. Now, just to get another 5 on each side, to that takes longer and longer. But that's what happens. You'll gain some strength pretty quickly at the beginning, and then you'll notice that you got to stay on it. You got to keep your foot on that accelerator, and you have to know when you need a break. That's one of the big mistakes people make. They'll go, I really want to get to this goal by this date. Let me up everything. I'm not going to take any days off. And that becomes the problem, right? You have to give your body a chance to absorb what you've done, right? And I even say that with aerobic exercise. People go, they think ultra runners or ultra cyclists just go out and just ride crazy miles every day. And when I explain to people, oh no, I would ride if I was on a spinner. This is when I'm in the season and in good shape. Monday is always a day off for me, right? Tuesday, I would either go out for a ride or spin for about 90 minutes to 2 hours. Wednesday, I would go out for a 3-hour ride or spin for 3 hours, right? This is when I was in incredible shape, right? And then Thursday, 90-minute spin or 90-minute ride. Take Friday completely off. I've already taken 2 days off between Monday and Friday. And in the middle of the week, I didn't ride any crazy amount of miles. And then on Saturday, that's when you start inching up your long day. And on Sunday, you do a short day. So if I rode for 10 hours on Saturday, I'd ride for 4.5 hours on Sunday, less than half. And then lick your wounds on Monday, completely off again, right? Go on. You look like you're...
So how do you know when you need a rest day? Because obviously there is, push, pull, legs, right? We can take a day off in between those, a push day, a rest day, a pull day, a rest day, a leg day, a rest day. Sometimes we have to shift that schedule around. Sometimes you need 2 or 3 days in between those sessions to really get the most out of it. So is there a way outside of saying, I just could not lift anything, that you should be taking that additional?
You have to stay fluid. The way I do it, and I've used this for years, even back in college when I was lifting heavy weights. I wanted to do push, pull, legs, break, right? Because let's say on Monday you do push, Tuesday you do pull, Wednesday you do legs. So you went from Monday to Thursday before you did push again. But the accumulation of all of those workouts, even when you're young, at some point you get to a workout where you're disinterested in going in a gym. You don't want to be there. You can't lift as much. We used to call it joke lifting. You're just fooling yourself, right? So whenever I would feel one of those days coming on, I would take that day off and sometimes take the next day off and then go back with that routine. But usually back in those days, one day, it's touchy-feely, man. You have to, that's what, you got to know your body. Just know what your body wants and do it. Give your body what it wants, right?
I think that's also the other benefit. I'm curious about your thoughts on this because this is just my jury rig system, right? What I have noticed from writing down results, right? Today I did 2 sets of 15 at 150 or whatever the numbers are. If you stop seeing that increase, it's not necessarily that you're doing something wrong. What I have noticed is if I have like 3 or 4, let's just call it a push workout, 3 or 4 push workouts in a row where I'm not seeing any progress, that's usually a sign that I need to increase the rest time or double check that I'm not eating hot garbage or whatever it is. Yeah. And I think until you get to learn your body, that is a great way for people. And it's literally as easy as spending, how much does a pencil and like a little notebook cost these days? I don't know, 30 cents, right? Yeah. Like walk into Staples, don't even get the mechanical one, just get the self-sharpening one, go sharpen a pencil somewhere and start writing that down. You will see not just the progress, but also the lack of progress. And the lack of progress, I think for a lot of people is an even stronger signal because you're saying, I'm doing something wrong. Well, I'm lifting the weight, so that's not a problem. There's clearly something else wrong. And the easiest thing to slot in there is just an extra rest day, right? Yes, you can eat more calories. There's a lot of things that you can do, but in most cases, if you're eating right, you don't have to add in a whole bunch of more food to start see that increase again. Your body has just gotten used to it and you can change up the routine, or you can add in that extra rest day and see what kind of a difference it makes.
And by the way, here at the house, I have the neighbor kid coming over. He's off at, military school or something now, but I just use legal pads because they're bigger. I can see what's going on and I can lay out his routine and watch what he's doing. you know, most people don't want to take a legal path to the gym because now your whole workout is there. You might be somewhat, you know, you don't want someone to come over and look at your stuff. So people use the little black book. I used to use the little black book. Actually, that you remember the composition books? You know, I would use the composition book and you know, fill them up, and then get another one, fill them up. So there are different ways to do it. You know, so I think we've chewed up this subject enough today. I don't think we left anything out. But it's good having a dude like you on where we can talk about exercise and testosterone and this whole thing. And by the way, now, and I'm not going to get into this conversation. I know now people keep asking me about, you know, taking peptides and all this kind of stuff. I think it's a bad road. We don't really know what those peptides are doing. I think they're as dangerous as taking large amounts of steroids, if not worse. So,
well, it's a part of a protein, right? And so what you're taking when you take a peptide, first of all, did you test it? Does it have testing results? Where did you get it? The FDA just came through, Vinnie, and I don't know if you saw that piece of news a couple months ago. And most of the things that were peptides that were being legally sold in the US, they reversed that position. And so now the people who are getting it in a lot of cases are getting it from very shady places. So you don't really know what's in it. And it's not to say that there's not some benefits to that, but let's start with the beginning, right? Like, let's start where we need to start. And I think the easiest thing for most people is to use something, whether it is NSNG or something like the NSNG based approach, right? Where you're saying, hey, I'm eating real food. I'm starting with whole food in mind, and I'm getting a little bit of cardio, whether that's intentional cardio, jumping on the bike, getting on the rowing machine, and maybe a little bit of weightlifting, because everybody can benefit from that, no matter what age that they have. And start there. You don't need to go to a pre-workout, which I know is a favorite topic of yours, right? We don't need, yeah, buddy, just to give your buddy Ron Coleman a shout, right? We don't need 500 milligrams of caffeine just to get to the gym. Let's figure out a middle road there. And I think starting with diet and then adding in these other things can make a huge change for people. And like you said, you have to start where you are. If you're 600 pounds, maybe that exercise component is just standing up and walking to the kitchen, right? Or standing up. Once you go from there, then you can add on other things. And my grandfather had his knee replaced 2 years ago or 3 years ago at this point. And his daily thing was, can I get further?
Yeah.
Right. Can I walk a little bit further? The day he got to the mailbox, which, by the way, he lived on like a 60-degree incline hill, right? So that's a challenge in and of itself, even if you don't have a brand new knee. But the day he got there, he said, you know what I'm doing tomorrow? I'm walking down the block to my brother-in-law's house. And then I'm going to go to the store, and then I'm going to go a little bit further, just as that challenge. And you don't have to ride 10 miles for that to make a difference. It's, can you do a little bit more? And if you can't, why can't you? And in a lot of cases, that's okay. It's okay to take a rest day. It's okay to give yourself that permission. It's the life into living of exercise, right? Like, sometimes you want to have that pie. And you said the 31st of December, a lot of times you have pie. You and I, for whatever reason, recently have talked a lot about pie and cake. But whatever, right? We're getting to that point of the year. And so you have to do the same thing with exercise. You can't be militant, for lack of a better word, about it and say, Wednesday is my leg day. I'm doing legs today. I don't care that I rolled my ankle last night. I'm doing legs today. That's as bad, if not worse for you, than never going to the gym or never getting up and moving. And giving yourself that permission, I think, is important for people to understand.
And by the way, you go, wait, Vinny, you always say never skip leg day. I say that in jest. And look, if I'm coming up on leg day and my lower back is tight and I'm having trouble, I will hold off and not do leg day on that day, because I'd rather have a better leg day tomorrow versus, oh, let me see if I can sneak this in without fucking up my back, which I know I'm going to do.
Well, there's a difference between skipping leg day and postponing leg day, right? Skipping leg day would be Wednesday's leg day. I can't do legs on Thursday.
Right.
Postponing it is saying, I can do this tomorrow when I know my back isn't going to be jacked up, or I can do this tomorrow when I know my foot is going to feel better. It's okay to be able to do that. Now, should you not do anything on that day? That's a question for your body and for you to understand.
Right.
But starting with some of the basic things, I think, gets people a long way there. And one of the things that we did in the VIP group that I think is really helpful for people are those body weight exercises. Because even if you can't get to the gym, right? I live 4 miles from a gym now, and I would have to walk there to be able to do that. I'm
Right.
okay with that because I go for a long walk in the mountains every morning anyway. But if I didn't want to go to the gym today, I can still get on the floor and do push-ups. I
Yeah.
can do some planks. I can do body weight stuff. And that is going to be additive, right? It's more than I would be doing if I was just sitting in my desk chair all day.
Yeah.
And so if we can start with some of those things, if we have the fear of the gym, or you mentioned people looking at your book, which is a whole other conversation that we've had a bunch of times in the VIP group, right? Everyone feels like everyone else is looking at the gym, and in
Right.
reality, nobody is.
No,
Right?
nobody
Everybody
is.
has that same level of self-consciousness in the gym, and they're looking at you because they think you're looking at them, right?
Yeah.
But having that laid out is a different thing. If you have that as a fear, start with the body weight stuff. Start with a little bit of weighted cardio, like you were talking about with the ruck, or something like that, and just start where you are and let your body be the guide.
Yeah. And you know what, Chris, we're going to make that the final word, because this 30-minute podcast is now
Just
well
turned
over
into
an hour. It's like an hour and 7 minutes. Folks, we still have Chris, we need to, at some point, shut down the VIP, the micro, but let's keep it running. This show comes out on that week. At the end, after this show comes out, 2 days after this show comes out, we're shutting it down. And maybe
So that would
we'll do
be
it.
Friday the 8th.
Yeah. So and by the way, it's a special deal. You could get in for 1 month. Your first month is free, right? Vinnie Tortorich /row, VinnieTortorich.com/row will get you to the VIP group. And if you sign up under that program, you get the first month free. You can check it out. So that's about it. The vitamins are all coming in. Chris and I have been working diligently on that. We are getting to where we won't be out of food product anymore, the ultra fat. We're getting to that. Everything is coming around. It's not happening as fast as anyone would want it to happen, especially us, but it's going to happen. Before you go to Amazon, go to VinnieTortorich.com, click through the banner. It puts a little coal on the fire, keeps the train running down the track. Chris made me think of this during the show. He actually brought it up, so we're going to play it right here at the end of the show. On behalf of Chris Shaffer, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living, and let's do it with a little band called Chicago.